WNBA fans woke up today to something nobody ever thought they'd see. A full-blown league meltdown so massive, so chaotic, so destructive, that players are crying, executives are panicking, agents are calling emergency meetings, and owners are bracing for impact. Because last night, the collective bargaining agreement, the deal that keeps the entire league alive, collapsed. Not under review, not under negotiation, not in discussion. It collapsed. And the moment it did, the entire WNBA flipped into survival mode. Players are terrified of losing salaries. Teams are terrified of losing their franchises. Executives are terrified of losing sponsors. And coaches? They're terrified of one thing: Caitlin Clark. Because the chaos didn't peak with the collapse. It exploded when Caitlin Clark, the face of the new era, the league's only ratings machine, the one person keeping the WNBA relevant in 2024, walked out, literally grabbed her bag. Ash looked management dead in the face, turned around, and left the building. No statement, no explanation, no public comment, just a silent exit heard around the entire sports world. And the moment she left, panic. Real panic. Phones started ringing, group chats went crazy, veterans started yelling, rookies started crying, agents started warning players to prepare for the worst. Because if Caitlin Clark walks, if Caitlin Clark refuses to play under the collapsed CBA, if Caitlin Clark steps away from the league even for 1 week, the WNBA is done. Television deals? Gone. Sponsors? Gone. Sold-out arenas? Empty. Record ratings? Dead. One insider said, if Caitlin leaves, half the league loses their jobs. And that is why players are panicking. That is why executives are scrambling. That is why the WNBA is in full meltdown mode. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Caitlin Clark didn't walk out because of money. She didn't walk out because of drama. She didn't walk out because of pressure. She walked out because of something far darker, something inside the CBA that the public was never supposed to see. And once she found out, she refused to stay. This isn't just a league crisis. This is the beginning of the biggest player revolt in WNBA history. Before the CBA crumbled, before players started panicking, before agents began calling lawyers at midnight, before Caitlin Clark walked out and sent the entire WNBA spiraling into chaos, there was a storm quietly building behind closed doors. A storm the public had no idea about. For years, the WNBA operated under a fragile balance. One built on small budgets, lower salaries, limited visibility, and a desperate reliance on sponsors to keep the league alive. But under the surface, there were deeper, darker issues nobody dared to mention. Player dissatisfaction, front office manipulation, broken promises, hidden financial cracks, and a looming power struggle between the old guard and the new era. It all began months before Caitlin ever stepped foot in the league. Players were growing frustrated. They complained about travel conditions. They complained about salaries not matching rising revenue. They complained about owners hiding financial numbers. They complained about decisions being made by people who didn't even watch their games. Veterans were furious. Rookies were confused. Coaches were exhausted. Executives were pretending everything was fine. But when Caitlin Clark entered the league, everything changed overnight. Suddenly, the WNBA wasn't a struggling niche league. It became a global product. Games were selling out in minutes. Viewership doubled. Ticket demand skyrocketed. Merch exploded. Sponsors lined up. And networks begged for more airtime. For the first time in WNBA history, there was real money on the table. And that's exactly when the cracks in the CBA started to show. Because the old deal was written in a world where the league wasn't profitable, where players weren't national stars, where teams didn't have sellout crowds, where one player didn't carry the entire media landscape. But Caitlin Clark blew that world to ashes. Her arrival exposed a truth players had whispered about for years. The WNBA was making more money than it admitted, and the players weren't seeing any of it. Behind the scenes, owners held emergency calls. Executives reviewed spreadsheets. PR teams discussed messaging strategies. Union leaders debated whether to push for renegotiation. But the veterans, they saw something else entirely. Caitlin Clark's presence was shaking their power, because for years, the league revolved around a group known unofficially as the Big Seven. The seven-star veterans the media pushed, the league protected, and Team USA repeatedly prioritized. They controlled the narrative. They influenced marketing. They had direct access to executives. They helped shape league decisions, including the CBA. But Caitlin's arrival broke their monopoly overnight. Sponsors didn't want the group anymore. They wanted her. Networks didn't want ensemble coverage anymore. They wanted her. Fans didn't line up for players who'd been in the league for 10 years. They lined up for her. And the Big Seven felt the shift in real time. Suddenly, their status wasn't guaranteed. Their endorsements weren't guaranteed. Their Olympic spots weren't guaranteed. Their media coverage wasn't guaranteed. A new star had entered the building, and she was bigger than all of them combined. And that's when the jealousy began. Small things at first. Side comments. Odd interviews. Passive-aggressive posts. Energy shifts on the court. Cold stares in tunnels. But as Caitlin's fame skyrocketed, the tension deepened. Veterans started asking, why is she getting special treatment? Why is she getting the big endorsements? Why is she getting the charter flights? Why is she getting all the cameras? But the real trigger? Money. Because when financial reports privately circulated among the union, the players discovered something horrifying. The league's revenue had nearly doubled, but the CBA locked them into outdated salary structures. Veterans were furious. They demanded a meeting. They threatened to boycott. But here's the twist. Executives weren't worried about the veterans. They could replace them. They could negotiate with them. Executives were worried about one player, Caitlin Clark, because the numbers showed something terrifying. If Caitlin Clark walked out, the WNBA's projected revenue dropped by over 54%. Sponsor interest dropped by 40%. National viewership dropped by half. Ticket demand for multiple franchises collapsed. Caitlin Clark wasn't just a player anymore. She was the economic backbone. The league's entire financial survival rested on one rookie. And that is why the CBA collapse didn't start with the veterans' complaints. It started when executives realized they could not meet Caitlin Clark's market value under the current system. And if she refused to play, the league would collapse. And that's exactly what happened. On Tuesday morning, Caitlin Clark sat in on a closed-door briefing with union representatives. They presented her documents, graphs, statements, internal emails. When she flipped through the binders, her face shifted. Confusion, frustration, shock. Because buried deep in those papers was something the league never wanted her to see. A clause written into the CBA years before she arrived. A clause that intentionally blocked any single player from earning more than a fixed percentage of league revenue. A clause created to prevent a breakout star from overshadowing the veterans. A clause created to maintain the balance of power. A clause that was practically designed to contain her. In other words, the WNBA had built a system specifically to hold Caitlin Clark down, and for the first time, she understood. No matter how many fans she brought, no matter how many records she broke, no matter how much revenue she generated, the system was never designed to reward her. Executives expected her to stay quiet, to be grateful, to smile for cameras, to pretend everything was equal. But Caitlin Clark didn't smile. She stood up, closed the binder, looked the union reps straight in the eyes, and said the sentence that started the collapse. "If this is the deal, I'm not playing." That moment set off a chain reaction that changed everything. Phones started buzzing, owners panicked, sponsors freaked out. The league's PR team went into meltdown mode. And players? They were stuck between two terrifying realities. If Caitlin walked, the WNBA died. If Caitlin stayed under the old deal, the players themselves were selling their futures away. And then the unthinkable happened. Hours later, the union couldn't hold the deal together. Negotiations broke, veterans exploded, young players sobbed, executives begged for time. The collective bargaining agreement officially collapsed. And Caitlin Clark, calm, composed, fearless, grabbed her bag and walked out. No hesitation, no fear, no second thought. A silent walkout that shook the entire WNBA to its core. But here's the final twist of this section. Something only a few insiders know. Caitlin didn't walk out alone. 3 other players followed her. And their names are going to change everything. The moment Caitlin Clark walked out, everything that the WNBA had spent years trying to hide cracked wide open. Players froze, coaches panicked, owners swore under their breath. Union leaders scrambled. Because Caitlin wasn't just leaving a meeting, she was sending a message. And everyone knew exactly what that message was. Fix the system, or lose the league. But what nobody expected was what happened next. Because when Caitlin left, she wasn't alone. 3 players quietly followed her out of the building. Not dramatic, not noisy, not in protest, but in silent, shared understanding. 1 rookie, 1 veteran, 1 rising star. 3 players from 3 different eras. All walking out behind the 1 player the league never expected to stand up. Insiders said the hallway felt like a funeral march. Silent, slow, emotionally heavy. The WNBA had never seen anything like this. But before we get to the first twist, we need to go back to where the explosion started. Minutes after the walkout, the WNBA Players Association received a confidential packet. A packet that PR teams begged them not to open. Of course, they opened it. Inside were dozens of documents. Salary structures, unreported revenue numbers, incentive breakdowns, AUK sponsorship projections, and 1 document marked in red. Do not distribute, internal only. That's the document that broke everything. Because it revealed that for the past 3 seasons, the league had been underreporting certain types of revenue to avoid triggering player bonuses. In simple terms, players were owed money, a lot of money. Veterans, rookies, everyone. And guess whose arrival exposed the financial discrepancy? Caitlin Clark. And her presence caused such a massive financial spike that the numbers could no longer be hidden. So instead of adjusting the salaries, the league tried to rewrite the CBA to protect themselves. That was the moment players realized. This wasn't a negotiation. This was a cover-up. Phones started buzzing. Anger rippled through locker rooms. Text groups exploded with messages like, "They lied to us. We've been underpaid for years. If Caitlin didn't show up, yet we'd never know. They tried to silence us." And for the first time ever, veterans and rookies were united by the same rage. But then, the plot twisted. Because someone leaked the internal emails, not to the press, not to social media, not to players. They leaked them directly to Caitlin Clark, an anonymous whistleblower from inside the WNBA office, possibly an executive. Nobody knows for sure. But the emails, they were worse than anyone imagined. On one email said, "She's getting too big too fast. We need to limit her leverage before renegotiations." Another, "Veterans must remain the public face. We cannot allow a first-year player to shift our market positioning." Another, "If her demands exceed our ceiling, we will force the union's hand into accepting a freeze." And then the most damning email of all, flagged, bolded, time-stamped. "We need a fallback plan in case Clark refuses to accept the restrictions. And I recommend we highlight her inexperience to justify financial limits." They planned to sabotage her, to undercut her value publicly, to gaslight her into accepting less, to make her look unreasonable. This wasn't mismanagement. It was premeditated manipulation. Caitlin read these emails in silence. And when she finished, she didn't throw the binder. She didn't curse. She didn't rage. She just stood up and walked out. But now the players who followed her, that's where the first twist comes in, because those 3 players weren't random. They represented the 3 power structures inside the WNBA, the future, the middle, and the establishment, and each one had a reason for walking away. The future. A rookie who idolized Caitlin Clark. She saw how the league treated Caitlin. She realized, if they can do this to her, what will they do to someone like me? For her, this was survival. The middle. A breakout star whose jersey sales skyrocketed this season. She realized the league was hiding money. Money she earned. Money she deserved. Walking out wasn't rebellion. It was justice. The establishment. A respected veteran quietly tired of the lies. She'd lived through the bad pay, the broken promises, the empty PR statements. She wasn't walking for herself. She was walking for every young player who'd been exploited. But the reason this twist shook the league? Because the veteran who walked out was one of the Big Seven, the old guard, someone the league assumed would never turn against them, someone executives counted on for loyalty, someone with influence, with power, with history. When she followed Caitlin out, it sent a message louder than any speech. We're not protecting corruption anymore. That's when the panic really began. Executives realized the one weapon they had, the veterans, was no longer reliable. Our sponsors started calling. What's happening? Is Caitlin leaving the league? Is the season in danger? Owners called emergency meetings. The union demanded immediate renegotiation, but the league had no leverage. Because Caitlin held the documents. The players held the unity. Sponsors held the money. Fans held the narrative. For the first time in WNBA history, the league was powerless. And then the first major twist detonated. A statement leaked from the union. 3 more players are preparing to walk out. 2 of them are all-stars. Bro. What? This wasn't a collapse. This was a revolution. But the twist didn't stop there. Another message leaked, this time from a burner account on Twitter. The walkout isn't about money. It's about a secret clause hidden in the CBA, one that could end multiple careers if exposed. Fans went crazy. What clause? Who does it affect? Why was it hidden? Why wasn't it disclosed? The league refused to comment. But here's the truth insiders began whispering. The WNBA secretly inserted a clause giving the league the right to limit media access to any player they choose, without explanation. Why does that matter? Because if things ever got too big, if someone became too powerful, if a star threatened the league's control, they could legally dim her spotlight. They tried to control Caitlin Clark's fame from day one. But they miscalculated. They didn't expect her to walk out. They didn't expect the players to unify. They didn't expect the leaked emails. They didn't expect a veteran to defect. And they definitely didn't expect the next twist. Not because just as the WNBA scrambled to regain control, just when they thought things couldn't get worse, a reporter dropped a bombshell tweet at 2:13 a.m. Multiple sources confirm Caitlin Clark is considering opting out of the WNBA entirely if the CBA isn't rebuilt from scratch. Bro, if she leaves, the league collapses overnight. And that's when the commissioner ordered something the players never expected. A private emergency meeting. Not with the union, not with the owners, but with Caitlin Clark herself. One-on-one. And that meeting changed everything. The emergency meeting was scheduled for 8:45 p.m., late enough that no media would be outside the building, early enough that executives could still scramble behind the scenes if everything went wrong. But when Caitlin Clark arrived, she didn't walk in quietly. Or she didn't keep her head down. She didn't appear intimidated. According to one insider positioned near the conference room, Caitlin stepped inside with the calmness of someone who knew she held every card on the table. And the commissioner felt it instantly. The room was silent. 2 security guards blocked the hallway. A PR executive pretended to check her phone even though her hands were shaking. Someone whispered, "Don't push her, and not tonight." Because the commissioner wasn't meeting with a rookie. She was meeting with the most powerful athlete the league had ever seen. The one person who could shut the WNBA down by simply not showing up. And that's exactly what the commissioner feared. The insider claims the commissioner tried to start with small talk. "Rough day, lot of emotions. Everybody wants what's best for the league." But Caitlin didn't respond. She just sat down, folded her hands, and waited. Yet the commissioner finally cut to the chase. What would it take to fix this? Not, how can we work together? Not, what went wrong? Not, how do we move forward? What would it take to fix this? Because this wasn't negotiation anymore. This was desperation. Caitlin remained quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. And that's when everything shifted. Because according to 2 insiders, independent of each other, Caitlin Clark didn't come alone. She brought the recording, or the second one. The one the WNBA hoped would never surface. The one whispered about in closed offices. The one executives prayed had been destroyed. The one they feared most. She placed the phone on the table. The commissioner's face reportedly drained of color. "What is that?" she asked. Caitlin didn't say a word. She simply pressed play. The recording started with background chatter, muffled voices, chairs scraping, papers rustling. And it sounded like a closed-door meeting between coaches and executives. But then one voice became clear. A top-ranking WNBA official. Not a coach. Not a team staffer. Not a PR rep. A league executive. One with real power. And this voice said words that would destroy careers if made public. "We can't let her become bigger than the league. If we don't control the narrative now, she'll control it later." A second voice responded. Another executive. "Limit interviews. Limit media. Limit access. I keep sponsor involvement moderated. The vets need priority." A third person chimed in. "She'll outgrow them in 2 years. We need to make sure she can't renegotiate early." But the line that broke the room, the line that made the commissioner drop her pen, according to the insider, was this. "If she becomes the face of the league, we lose control. She can't be allowed to lead the players." BRO. They didn't just fear Caitlin's fame. They feared her leadership. Like they feared she would unify the players. They feared she would expose financial truth. They feared she would demand real transparency. They feared she would force them to pay players fairly. They feared she would change the league forever. They feared her power, and they plotted to contain it. For nearly 5 minutes, the recording played. Executives discussing strategies to limit Caitlin's influence, strategies to manipulate the CBA structure, strategies to highlight veterans, use strategies to manage public perception. When the recording ended, the room was dead silent. The commissioner reportedly closed her eyes for a full 10 seconds. She didn't ask where Caitlin got it. She didn't ask who leaked it. She didn't ask if there were more. She already knew. Because the only people who were in that closed-door meeting were league executives. In other words, there is a mole inside the WNBA at the highest level. Someone Caitlin now trusted more than the league itself. And here's where the story gets insane. The commissioner swallowed hard and asked, "What is it you want?" This was the moment that changed everything. Caitlin leaned forward, calm and steady, and said, "I want the truth made public. Every player deserves to know." The commissioner tried to respond, until Caitlin cut her off. "And if it isn't made public, I'll release the full recording myself. Brew! This wasn't a request. This was an ultimatum. The commissioner panicked. "And you can't do that," she said. "It will destroy the league." Caitlin didn't blink. "They already tried to destroy me." The room froze. Everyone knew the truth. The old guard had protected their spotlight while the league protected their control by suppressing its biggest star. The commissioner begged, "Please, Caitlin, if this leaks, everything falls apart." Caitlin looked her straight in the eyes and said, "Then rebuild it." That sentence created shockwaves through the entire WNBA office. Because Caitlin wasn't asking for better pay. She wasn't asking for special treatment. She wasn't asking for personal gain. She was demanding a complete reconstruction of the league. A transparent CBA, fair salaries, equal media access, protection for young players, a new leadership structure, no hidden clauses, no political favoritism, no manipulation of star players. The commissioner realized something horrifying. This wasn't Caitlin's fight. It was everyone's fight, and she was leading it. But then came the shocking reveal. While the commissioner scrambled to respond, Caitlin's phone buzzed. A text message from an anonymous number. One line. "It's time. Release everything. The players are ready." Bro. What? This wasn't just Caitlin standing alone. This wasn't just 3 players walking out. This wasn't just a few upset rookies. There was an entire underground movement forming. A group of players who had been collecting receipts, on tracking financial inconsistencies, and preparing for the day the truth would come out. And now, they were telling Caitlin, "Go. Do it. Drop everything. We'll stand behind you." The commissioner saw the message over Caitlin's shoulder, and she knew instantly what it meant. If Caitlin Clark went nuclear, the entire league would follow her. And that's when the final blow struck. At 11:52 p.m., just as the meeting was ending, news alerts hit every phone in the building. Sources report that multiple All-Star players are considering joining Caitlin Clark's walkout. Names weren't listed, but insiders knew who they were. And one of them was a veteran the league never expected to rebel. The commissioner's face went pale. Because a star walkout doesn't just threaten the league, it ends it. Caitlin stood up, grabbed her phone, and said the last words the commissioner expected. "You have until tomorrow morning." She walked out. No handshake, no reassurance, no fear, just a deadline. And the moment she left the building, she sent one text to the anonymous whistleblower. "Send the next file." The reply came instantly. "It's worse than you think." The next file, the next leak, the next bomb, the one that names the mastermind behind the entire corruption, the one that could get people fired, the one that could dismantle leadership, the one that could force resignations, the one that could threaten WNBA ownership itself, the one that could expose the darkest secret the league has been hiding for years. And when that file drops, team owners won't be able to save the league. The commissioner won't be able to fix it. Players won't stay silent. Sponsors will demand answers. The WNBA won't survive unless they give Caitlin exactly what she wants. A completely rebuilt system. But the real question now isn't whether the league can recover. It's, can the WNBA survive the next leak? Or is this the end of everything? Because according to the whistleblower, the mastermind behind the corruption is someone nobody would ever suspect. The second news broke that Caitlin Clark had walked out and that multiple All-Stars were preparing to follow. The world didn't just react. It detonated. Within minutes, social media turned into a digital riot. Twitter went feral. Instagram flooded. TikTok exploded with theories. Reddit locked down threads because they were crashing every 5 minutes. No exaggeration. Sports fans, WNBA critics, diehard supporters, casual viewers, NBA stars, celebrities, college athletes, and even European leagues were all watching the meltdown unfold in real time. And the first wave of reactions? Pure shock. What is going on in the WNBA? Caitlin just shut down the whole league. The CBA collapsed? Did I read that right? A walkout? Multiple players? Hashtags began trending instantly. Hashtag WNB a walkout. Hashtag stand with Caitlin. Hashtag CB a collapse. Hashtag WNB a revolt. Hashtag rebuild the league. Hashtag fix the system. But the most viral one? Hashtag what did they hide millions of views in under 30 minutes? Because for the first time, the entire world knew. The WNBA had been hiding something big. And Caitlin Clark was the one who pulled the curtain back. But the chaos didn't stop at fans. Our celebrities jumped in, and they were not holding back. Drake posted, "League politics killing the game. Let the players lead." LeBron James tweeted a fire emoji with, "Players deserve the truth." Paige Buchers dropped a cryptic "eyes," which alone sent fans into meltdown because people instantly assumed she knew more. Bill Simmons said, "If Caitlin Clark leaves the WNBA, it becomes a rec league overnight." Sue Bird, a legend, posted, "Painful to watch, unnecessary." But the one tweet that blew up the internet. Shaq wrote, "You don't silence a superstar, you rebuild the system around her." Boom. That tweet alone nearly caused the WNBA servers to crash. But while celebrities were choosing sides, WNBA players were entering a civil war. The comment section under every post turned into a battleground. Veteran players made passive-aggressive posts. "Stay out of player business." "Some people don't respect the grind." "Leadership comes from years. I'm not followers." Fans instantly interpreted these as shade toward Caitlin. The replies were brutal. "She carried the league more in 3 months than y'all did in 10 years. Jealousy is loud. Y'all mad she makes more money on one commercial than your entire season salary." Some rookies subtly backed Caitlin. "Change is uncomfortable but necessary. We deserve fairness. Transparency now." Screenshots of players liking pro-Caitlin tweets started circulating, and fans analyzed them frame by frame like FBI agents. But the real shock? A former WNBA champion commented this under one post. "The things I knew when I played, y'all aren't ready." Brew. Everyone lost it. The comment had 50,000 likes before it was deleted, meaning she said too much, which only made people more curious. Then came the ESPN meltdown. ESPN cut into regular programming with a breaking news banner. Everything stopped. NBA pregame shows, NFL talk, college analysis. And all of it was pushed aside. Reporters looked shook. Malika Andrews said, "This is the biggest crisis in WNBA history." Stephen A. Smith went off. "I've been saying this for months. You don't mistreat your star. You don't lie to your players. And you definitely don't underestimate a movement led by someone as influential as Caitlin Clark." Kendrick Perkins. "They messed with the wrong one." Monica McNutt, who usually defends the WNBA structure, this time shook her head and said, "If these allegations are true, the league is in real trouble." Even Skip Bayless, who usually talks nonsense, literally said, "I've never seen a player walk out and take half the league's stability with her." Meanwhile, the WNBA was imploding from the inside. Owners were panicking. One insider said, "NBA governors are furious. The WNBA is attached to their brand. They can't have corruption exposed like this." Sponsors, the lifeline of any league, started pulling back. Nike asked for a private report. Gatorade requested a timeline. Google paused an ad rollout. State Farm postponed an entire promo campaign. All because Caitlin wasn't happy. All because the league messed with its biggest asset. All because executives got greedy. And then came the moment that changed everything again. The WNBA Players Association made a public statement. We stand with our players. We demand full transparency. We will not sign any agreement that does not protect our athletes. Translation: the players just declared war. This wasn't a union negotiating. This was a union mobilizing. And the league's worst fear became reality. Veterans, the same veterans who were supposedly jealous of Caitlyn, now publicly demanded transparency from the league. Meaning, even they realized the truth was on Caitlyn's side. But the real nuclear bomb dropped when a reporter leaked 2 names. The 2 All-Stars preparing to join Caitlyn's walkout. A top 5 veteran scorer. A recent MVP candidate. The reporter didn't reveal which ones, but fans immediately began speculating. Oh, it's definitely her. No way she's leaving. Bro, if she joins Caitlyn, the league collapses. Every name trending. Every player forced into the spotlight. Every rumor spiraling. The WNBA was in flames. And then the final twist of this section hit. The one that sent the entire internet into a frenzy. At 3:14 a.m., the anonymous whistleblower returned with a new message. You've seen the first file. You've heard the second recording. But the third one is the one that ends careers. The third one? A third recording? Fans lost their minds. The third leak is coming? If the second one was this bad, imagine the third. Drop it now. Who is the mastermind? And the account posted one more line before going silent. She wasn't the only target. Bro, who else were they trying to control? Which players were involved? What did executives really do? How deep does this go? The entire sports world is now holding its breath. Because the next leak, the third recording, it won't just expose corruption. It might end the WNBA as we know it. By sunrise, the WNBA wasn't just in crisis. It was in total freefall. Executives were calling emergency lawyers. Owners were snapping at each other on private calls. Players were whispering in locker rooms. Agents were drafting exit strategies. Sponsors were threatening to suspend funding. And Caitlyn Clark? Nah, she hadn't posted a single thing. One silent rookie had the entire league on its knees. But the real panic began when the whistleblower, the mysterious insider dropping bomb after bomb, posted again at 7:03 a.m. The third recording identifies the architect, the person who orchestrated everything. Fans went crazy. Who was the mastermind? A star? A coach? An executive? A team owner? Everyone had theories. Nobody had answers. The WNBA's PR team tried to run damage control, but every hour made them look more guilty. Teams began issuing "We support transparency" statements, which in PR language means, we know something horrible is coming. But nothing prepared the world for what happened next. Because the players who had walked out behind Caitlyn Clark, the rookie, the breakout star, and the shocking veteran, met privately that morning in a downtown hotel conference room. No coaches, no executives, no league reps, just players. And what they discussed would redefine the WNBA forever. According to someone inside that meeting, the veteran, the one everyone assumed would stay loyal to the league, stood up and said, "It was never just about Caitlyn. We've all been lied to. We've all been controlled. And the person behind it isn't who you think." The room went silent. Nobody breathed. Because everyone expected the mastermind to be the commissioner, or a powerful owner, or a coach with influence. But the veteran shook her head. It's someone higher. Higher than the commissioner? Players exchanged terrified looks. One whispered, "Wait, you don't mean..." But before she could finish, the breakout star pulled out her phone, and she played the beginning of the third recording. The one nobody had heard yet. The one the whistleblower warned would end careers. It wasn't a long clip, maybe 12 seconds. But those 12 seconds changed everything. A familiar voice spoke first. Calm, cold, strategic. We can't allow newcomers to control the direction of this league. Protecting our legacy is the priority. Another voice responded. The same executive from the second recording. She's too influential. If she pushes for a new structure, the players will follow. And then, the mastermind spoke. The voice that froze everyone in that room. A prominent WNBA owner. One known publicly as a champion for the players. One who'd been a vocal advocate for equality, and one the fans trusted. One players confided in. One everyone thought was fighting for them. But behind closed doors, her voice was ice. We control the league, we control the narrative, and we decide which players rise and which ones don't. If Caitlin Clark becomes the leader they want, the system collapses. Handle it. Brew. An owner, a woman the WNB. A put on magazines, a woman celebrated for empowering athletes. A woman awarded for supporting women's sports. She was the mastermind. She wasn't protecting veterans. She wasn't protecting coaches. She wasn't protecting the league. She was protecting her power. And Caitlin Clark threatened that power more than anyone in WNBA history. The breakout star paused the recording. The room shook. Some players started crying. Some were furious. Some sat in disbelief. As one rookie whispered, "She smiled in our faces, and she was controlling us the whole time." But the veteran, the same veteran who walked out behind Caitlin, slammed her fist on the table. "We're done letting her decide our careers. We're done being puppets. We're done being used." Another player stood up. "We expose her today." But Caitlin, who had entered the room quietly, finally spoke. And her words stunned every player in attendance. "No, not yet." The room froze, and Caitlin looked around at the players, some she admired, some who hated her, some who'd ignored her, and said, "If we expose her now, she'll spin it. She'll blame execs. She'll blame the commissioner. She'll blame the CBA." A player asked, "So what do we do?" Caitlin stepped forward and said, "We make her confess." Gasps, shouts, shock, because Caitlin wasn't asking to leak the recording. She wanted something bigger, a live admission, public, recorded, undeniable. Our players exchanged stunned looks. "How?" someone asked. Caitlin didn't hesitate. "We confront her, face to face, all of us, and we don't walk out of that room until she tells the truth." Brew! This wasn't a protest. This was an overthrow. An entire league rising against its own leadership, led by the youngest player in the room. But the moment that pushed this storyline into absolute chaos came 10 minutes later, when players' phones started buzzing simultaneously. Not texts, just notifications. The whistleblower had posted again, this time with a video. A blurred-out figure sitting at a desk, voice distorted. They said only one sentence. She's preparing her response, and she's willing to sacrifice players to protect herself. Sacrifice players? The room exploded with panic. Who was she targeting? Which players were at risk? Was she planning punishments, suspensions, contract cuts, blacklisting, media manipulation? The veteran turned to Caitlin and said, "It's now or never. Either we take her down, or she takes all of us down first." And Caitlin replied with the line that ends this entire section on a monster cliffhanger. "Then let's go see her before she makes her move." The players gathered their things. They headed for the door. They formed the biggest united front the WNBA has ever seen. And they marched toward a confrontation that could burn the entire league to the ground. And because the mastermind? She wasn't waiting. She already had players in her crosshairs. And in part 2, we find out exactly who she planned to destroy first. if you're still watching after everything that just happened. After the secrets, after the walkouts, after the leaked recordings, after the mastermind reveal, after the players marching toward the owner who controlled their entire careers. Then congratulations. You are witnessing the most explosive moment in WNBA history unfold in real time. But trust me, this story is far from over. The players are on their way to confront the woman who manipulated deals, silenced voices, rigged opportunities, and tried to contain the rise of the most influential rookie the league has ever seen. And right now, nobody knows how that meeting will end. Will the mastermind cave under pressure? Will she deny everything? Will she blame the executives? Will she expose someone else even more powerful? Or will she fight back and take down multiple players to protect her empire? And the biggest question, what will Caitlin Clark do when the confrontation begins? Because she's not just walking into a meeting. She's walking into WAR, a battle for the league's future, a showdown that could make or break every career in that room. So before Part 2 drops, I want you to weigh in. Because this isn't just drama, this is history. Do you think the mastermind should be exposed publicly? Yes or no? Was Caitlin right to walk out, or did she escalate things too far? Which players do you think will join her next? Name them. Should the third recording be released to the public immediately? And most importantly, who do you think the mastermind will target first? Drop your predictions in the comments. I'm telling you, this is where the real fight begins. Like this video if you believe players deserve transparency. Subscribe so you don't miss the exact moment the next leak drops. Turn on notifications because Part 2 is coming sooner than you think. And trust me, the confrontation you're about to witness, it will make everything so far look small. Because in Part 2, the mastermind speaks. A top WNBA star gets exposed. A player betrays the group. Caitlin receives a threat. The third recording finally drops, and the league faces its most dangerous ultimatum yet. This isn't just a scandal. This is the revolution. And it's only just beginning. Part 2. Loading.